What up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fightful Wrestling Roundtable. We caught Kenny slipping looking down on his phone, but that's okay. He's just getting ready for the next hour of action. My name is Shakiel Mahjouri from CBS Sports, taking over Fightful once in a while because Sean Sapp is so kind to me, and we've got an all-star lineup, always fun, and based on some of our pre-stream chatter, I am both excited and very nervous for where this is going to go. First and foremost, we got inside the ropes very own Kenny McIntosh, Lajas joining us from Church of Joshi, and of course right here at Fightful, Righteous Reg, still licking his wounds after a very emotional week at Fightful, but coming in strong, looking like a pro with the mic. Kenny, how you doing, my man?
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. I'm going to be way more PC and PG on this on-air version, so I'm very excited. I'm speaking to new friends I've not really spoken to before, so I'm excited.
Alex, how are we doing?
Right. I'm just happy to be here.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's good. Happy to talk about the week in wrestling, especially with the draft and other exciting AEW news. So always a pleasure to be on the round table.
Yes, we're so excited for that deep, riveting, thought-provoking analysis that you're bringing so early into the program. Righteous Reg, how's it going, my guy?
It's going very well. Very excited to be here. A lot of wrestling talk going on. A lot of crazy things happening on my end for wrestling this week. But, I'm just moving ahead. Very happy with the wrestling landscape right now. Excited about all-in ticket sales going on right now because big win for AEW is a big win for pro wrestling.
Big win for Kenny McIntosh. Doesn't even have to make much of a trek to get that one in. Now, let's start speaking of the landscape of pro wrestling. Let's start with WWE, and we're going to get to AEW as well, of course. Kind of interesting. We kind of got draft talks with both promotions a few months out from each other. But coming out of Monday Night Raw, we have our new Raw and SmackDown rosters set in place. I'll give this year's draft a bit of a mixed response. I'll say I had really bad feelings about it when Triple H came out. I understand that there's no GM of either show, but it was so bland to me when you just have Trips out there reading Raw, reading SmackDown. But shout out to the legends who kind of brought it back for me. Let's start here. Before we get into the individual picks, how do we want to see this draft implemented? Because we've seen in the past WWE do in its original iteration, a very strict brand split. The guys on Raw were on Raw, the guys on SmackDown, the gals on SmackDown were on SmackDown. We've seen sort of a softer brand split, where occasionally superstars will kind of cross the pond. We've seen sort of weird rules instigated where X number of superstars, and it's much like WWE programming. Nothing's ever really adhered to. But Kenny, I'm going to start with you. Now that we have our rosters assembled, how would you like WWE to move forward with these new picks?
And I'm not allowed to say, can we just scrap it and go back to the way that it was?
I mean, it would be very on brand for WWE, but let's try and give them benefit of the doubt.
Okay, because we loved the last, and I've loved the last 9 months. It's been such a better show overall. People just going each way. I'm going to give an example just for why I think that we're in a bit of trouble with this brand split or this draft. If you look at the two rosters, I think each brand probably has about 6 months worth of stories to tell, and then you're going to kind of run out of people. Like Edge, as an example, who's on SmackDown. If you look at the roster, there's really only 2 to 3 people Edge can face: Roman Reigns, Austin Theory, and oh dear God, no, please do not be Karrion Kross. That's the 3 options that we have. Once that's done, he's got nobody else to really face. So I feel like that's the downside, because there's just not enough people who are big enough names, I think, to carry over. So my hope is that we get a few months of good stuff, and then let's just scrap it again. Everybody go to every show and live happy, fulfilled, enriched lives.
Alex, how are we feeling about Kenny's 3-month plan here?
I agree. I think that their problem is that they just don't know how to make stars anymore. But in a business perspective, they do need names to sell the tickets. But I just don't think that they're relying on the names that they already have to sell the tickets. They're mid-card ish. I know that a few people have said that they're predicting that Triple H has a plan further down the line. Maybe this draft going to set up something for them going towards Survivor Series, and that's it probably. So I agree with Kenny, but it's just this draft, I think I'm putting it in moving forward. I think it just needs to be ironed out a little bit more. It just seems like they're just booking themselves into a corner and a mess. It seems like the bumper of the car is coming off and they're just putting it on with duct tape at this point.
Reg?
Yeah, issue is first that it's been so muddied up at this point. Nobody is really a Raw superstar or SmackDown superstar. So a lot of the draft didn't feel like, wow, this is like a big surprise thing happening. It all just felt like, okay, these people are being implemented over here. I think there are some good things that could happen, but I think in order for this to be successful, they have to go all in on it. Already, I'm kind of question mark because they did the free agents thing. So they're already saying people being low, which is already kind of going against everything they're saying here. So it made me nervous that there's like, well, these people are stuck over here, but these people, they could be on any show. And it's like, well, you're already telling a different story than we're supposed to be telling. So I'm nervous.
Yeah, and guys, if you have anything to share, please feel free to drop a super chat, $1, 1,000. I've got my preference, but it's all good. We'll get to those as we proceed throughout the show. Yeah, Reg, you're about to trigger me with the free agency thing. I do not know what sense that makes, and I might be the only person here. Like, I actually, maybe it's because although I started watching wrestling in like the late '90s, my most formative years growing up would have been the Ruthless Aggression era. So I do have a soft spot for the brand split and the sorts of stories that can be told periodically with, like Alex, you mentioned Survivor Series. I like that it sort of forces the promotion to elevate stars because they can't sort of pluck from the roster as a whole. But to everyone's point, like, do we believe WWE has the track record this day and the commitment to execute that properly? For me, the fact that you have like Judgment Day being recruited separate to Rhea Ripley, and then you have the Usos recruited separately to the rest of the bloodline, but then the LWO is being recruited entirely, like the lack of consistency there boggles my mind. Also, will one division not have tag team champions now because you've drafted Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens to Raw? Sort of easy out to separate them from the bloodline, but now, Triple H is bringing in the World Heavyweight title so that there's active champions on that brand, yet you're taking champions away from other brands. Same goes for the women's tag team titles. There's just so many inconsistencies, and they feel like sort of, I think duct tape is a perfect analogy. Like, it's just, this may not make sense, but let's just throw it out there because we have to kind of cover all these gaps. So I'm not optimistic, but I love the premise of it, and I hope it pans out because I could see a great scenario where, let's say, Seth Rollins becomes the World Heavyweight Champion and you can build to a really fun Survivor Series with him on one side, Roman Reigns on the other, and there's actually reason for that match there beyond some sort of brand warfare. So I love the premise. The execution I'm not sold on quite yet. On that note, now that we have the World Heavyweight Championship exclusive to Raw, who do we want to see win that tournament? I know I mentioned Seth. That's sort of the obvious pick. Is there anyone else that stands out as a viable contender? Alex, we'll start with you.
I think Shinsuke Nakamura would be a great first champion for that. And even building up to it, I would like to see him in the finals with Seth Rollins. That's another superstar that is a good example of how much that the company's dropped the ball in so many years, especially with him. And even beginning of this year, he had a great match against the Great Muta, and it gave me hope for this year that maybe they would do something a little bit more with Shinsuke, or that they would work more with other companies in Japan, like we've seen with other promotions. But actually, it would be a good um component for that. But then again, there's just a lot of good people on Raw that are not Cody. And no to Cody, it's just he has his eyes on the prize, and that is fantastic. But there's just so many good people that could win that championship. But for me, it's Shinsuke.
Think pick, Reg.
I'm curious to what they're going to do with Gunther. Are they going to be super hard on still trying to push him with this Intercontinental title thing? Are they going to make focus on him, or are they going to give him the opportunity to potentially be entered into this tournament? Because I think he'd be a great last opponent for who I think the eventual winner is going to be, Seth Rollins. If they don't give this belt to Seth Rollins, they're doing a disservice to everyone. And if they give this belt to Cody Rhodes, they are doing the hugest disservice in history to Cody Rhodes. That would just burn everything that he has down. No pun intended.
Kenny?
I'm just allowing you to process that moment. I just want to say one quick thing about what you were talking about before. To me, the thing in the last 9 months was they'd done so much to fix stuff. They'd made stars like Dominic and people in the mid-card. I think it's like taking a car and taking a sledgehammer to it rather than like the car was working fine. You don't need to like damage the car. But in terms of the belt, now this is going to sound like I'm being biased, but I'm not. I'd like to see Drew McIntyre become the World Heavyweight Champion because I think if he was to win the finals as a heel, like if he was in the finals with Seth and he was to, at the last minute, do something that so massively that he turns, I think that would be a really good kind of program going into the summer. He's the top heel. He can work with Cody. He can work with various people. And then you've kind of got Gunther, like Reg was talking about. He can kind of still be making his way up the ascent. And, you know, maybe he's a Rumble winner next year. There's ways to kind of pad that out. So I would go for Drew. Not Cody, though. Under any circumstance.
Yes. It would just be such
absolutely not.
participation trophy to give it to Cody.
Unless they do something where they like, I mean, I don't know why you would do it, but they would need to do something where it's like, he'll go for the belt, but this is not the belt that is going to complete the story. Like, he would need to make it really clear that like this, but then you're kind of shitting on the belt.
Yeah,
so
you can't.
It's fine. I'm actually split right down the middle between Reg and Kenny here. Especially after how disappointing the Cody Rhodes match was at WrestleMania, or the outcome, excuse me. Especially now that we've seen where it's sort of headed. Part of me feels bad doing it to Seth Rollins, who's been such a company man and has been putting everyone over for the last year. It seems like it's really overdue, but I really like the idea of Drew McIntyre, especially in the aftermath of his apparent contract holdups with the WWE. Come back as a heel, win. You've got a great program with Seth that can carry you into the summer, and maybe for sure by the summer, I think I'd like to see Seth crowned as champion. And unlike Cody Roman, I think it'd be like a nice way to sort of subvert expectations, because everyone, I think, has Seth Rollins as the number one seed. On the note, especially about Gunther, I am curious, coming out of the draft, which was your favorite pick and which was the worst? Like, which superstar do you think it makes sense? It's a great change of scenery for them. Are there any that stand out as particularly bad? I can open the floor. If no one has one off the top of their head, I can take it.
I think a great pick for me is going to be Bobby Lashley going over to SmackDown. I think that opens up the doors. I hate that they're going to feed him to Roman Reigns, which it kind of looks like is going to happen because he's like one of the best contenders he has. But I think he could do a lot of good things over there. As far as bad picks, I think just because they haven't explained it, it's like, what are they doing with the championships and why they switch Rhea and Bianca with the belts?
How does that even work? Like, historically?
Explain to me why we're doing this. I don't understand it.
So this is actually a big. I'm gonna go to Aubrey James here in the super chats, and thank you, Aubrey. We're gonna move this to a different software next time, so we'll get your name up there. That's coming soon. It's long overdue. Aubrey says, "Why are SmackDown wrestlers fighting for Raw titles? If you're gonna do this draft, could you not have just pushed it until after Backlash? Because now we have all these matches between Raw superstars and SmackDown superstars that's going to impact the outcome of where titles go, and it's just like, it doesn't feel like this draft has gone into effect. If you're trying to create a hard split, I'm not seeing it executed. Like, I'm still seeing all the superstars appearing on both programs. It doesn't feel like we've had a draft, and I don't want to have to think back in a week to, oh, who's on which roster now? Like, just delay it for a week, guys. Anywho, Reg, should we get your worst pick?
Worst pick. There wasn't any hard, like I said, there wasn't a hard split on who was either sides. So none of them really like offended me too much, I think.
Kenny, Alex, do we have any thoughts on this either way? I can take it.
I was just gonna say I agree with the women's championship. It just does not make any sense to put Raw on SmackDown, SmackDown on Raw. Like, that was a perfect opportunity to build a division around the champions, because I think Bianca is perfect on Monday Night Raw and Rhea is perfect on SmackDown. And so that should have been the thought process to that. Whatever. But I wouldn't say that that's the worst, but that's the one that I have a little bit of issue with. But also, going to NXT, I feels like they took a lot of the NXT tag women to the main roster, which was needed because the main roster doesn't have a lot of women's tag teams. But at the same time, what's going to have to happen with the NXT tag team championships? Like, what, are you going to build up a new division with that women that you already have? Because you could, but it's mucky waters speaking. The best I will say is Pretty Deadly, because I absolutely love that team. We can both agree it's fine, but listen, I love Pretty Deadly, and I think that they have a potential to be a fantastic tag team. However, the tag division is going to be on SmackDown, but one thing that WWE does do that I sort of like is just sometimes they just stop it, is when they hone in on the comedy aspect of the sports entertainment. And one of my dream matches for Pretty Deadly is them against the Fashion Police. I would love a callback to that. But yeah, I think those are my best and worst. But again, like Reg said, there's nothing that's the worst that I completely disagree with. It's just having a weird feeling about it, but just see where they go with their choices.
Sorry, Kenny. What do you have to contribute now?
Pretty Deadly. That's it. I don't know. No, Pretty Deadly are mine as well. Favorite, because I think that they're actually going to do really well on SmackDown. There's multiple tag teams on SmackDown, like the Brawling Brutes, Usos, and different people even the OC, who I think that it'll be good for them to get in with teams like that and build themselves up to be in a different team. And to Alex's point, I think with the women's tag titles, I think because there's so few women's teams, what I would do if it was up to me, I'm not a booker, but if I was, I'd do the thing they were originally going to do, which is that the women's tag champs are across all of the shows, Raw, SmackDown, NXT. Yeah. And because really, are there enough tag teams for an NXT women's tag title and a main roster tag title? It feels like the only way those work is to just put random women together. I mean, Ronda Rousey was like pick 4 within a tag team. I mean, can you imagine somebody said that to you 2 years ago? You'd be like, chance.
Right.
The worst ones for me are probably a lot of the free agents. If I never see Dolph Ziggler again, it will be too soon. I think he's worked there for 700 years. Like, he's just been around forever. He's just done everything, and I feel like do you remember that time where he did the thing where he was like, guys, I'm leaving. I'm going to relinquish the US title. And next month he turned up as a surprise entry in the Rumble. I was like, what are we doing? And then it's like, oh, it's okay, lads. Don't worry. Von Wagner's a free agent.
Oh, God. That's my worst pick. Thank you. I'm back at it. Von Wagner. Absolutely awful, terrible work. No charisma. I can't believe he exists as a pro wrestler. It's what's that nepotism thing? Whatever that is, he's connected to it.
Nepo baby.
Yes, exactly.
All right. To close this off, I'll give mine very quickly.
You were really affected though. I apologize, Shaq, if you've got like a friendship with him, and
Wow.
if I've upset you with Dolph. I think
I have a soft spot for all those guys, the Zack Ryders, the Dolph Zigglers, who just got screwed in the what's the timeline? I can't even remember at this point. Mid 2010s, early 2010s.
Yeah, but then is there not an argument though that if you're in a company, whether it's WWE, you need to know your time to go and to do something else and to kind of rebuild yourself? Like he's been there since 2005.
No, I think if you were an AEW,
I could have birthed a child and he'd be a clown.
Yeah, it just hurts. It brings back all these memories of what should have been.
I apologize.
That's okay.
What's time for you?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot to be angry about in this world, Kenny, as previously discussed off the air. All
right, okay.
All right, in closing, if only people knew what all the random stuff. Well, never mind. In closing for me, best pick, Drew McIntyre. Like I said, I think he's, of all the people who could really use a change of scenery, I think he really serves to benefit from this. Worst pick, I might be alone on an island here. I really did not want Imperium on Raw. And let me tell you why. You have, if your whole reason to have the World Heavyweight Championship on Raw is that you have a part-time champion over on SmackDown and Roman Reigns, there is no stronger singles title right now than the Intercontinental belt. So you've now taken what will be actively presented as the sort of the two top titles that you see on week-to-week television, both on Raw. There's not much heat on the U.S. title. The undisputed title's barely seen. And I don't really need Gunther in this world title tournament because guys, it's Honky Tonk Man, bless his soul, bless his heart. It's time for that record to go away. It is long overdue. If you're gonna,
I agree.
if you are
I will not hear this slander towards man of the year of our Lord 2023. The shake, rattle, and roll isn't. It would. That would have been so huge. Imagine Okada taking the shake, rattle, and roll. No. I mean, huge.
I will be besides myself.
About to make a year with the title. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just like, imagine they deny Cody Rhodes that moment at WrestleMania just so Roman Reigns can cross 1,000 days, and then you drop Gunther's Intercontinental title when he had, especially coming off that WrestleMania match. Jeez, I mean, yeah. So that's mine.
Are we allowed to say that Roman Reigns? Are we allowed to say that Roman Reigns come back to work yet? Like, are we at that point where like? Come on, like it's been like a month. Like he should be back soon. Like it just feels like all the storylines are kind of surrounding him, and he's not there. And it's like
there is I kind of like the idea. I like the allure of the MJFs and the Roman Reigns not being there week to week, but not like this, guys. Like this is too much.
It was really bothering him, and surely he would be back to sort of scold the Usos for losing or to. Whatever, but it just feels like we have this kind of imaginary cardboard cut every week.
What does he do? What's Roman Reigns doing right now?
Counting his money. Probably.
Yeah.
Counting
out at home.
Money. But I like the element of him just not showing to work. He's about to make 1,000 days. He has the titles.
But
you guys can do whatever you want. Make sports entertainment show happy.
My thing is like you guys got a giant show in Puerto Rico. Like I'm sure all those Puerto Rican fans would be very excited to see the world champion Roman Reigns. Like
no, we don't. We have Bad Bunny. It's fine.
Okay, all right.
That's our world champion.
If anybody would know, you would know. You would know. Okay, respect.
No, I'm kidding. But you're right. You're right.
You know, it's WWE. They're coming to town. Like, I want to see Roman Reigns. He's the man, but he's at home kicking it, eating the Lunchables. It's crazy.
But do you remember he said the thing at the press conference after WrestleMania where he said, "This story's just get started." It's like, okay.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about when him and Paul Heyman went after Nick Hausman. Shout out to Wrestling Inc. So.
Oh, no.
Nick.
I was sitting next to Nick. It was a good time. I enjoyed myself.
That's the story coming out of the draft that got me scratching my head the most because everyone was saying after the WrestleMania match, well, they're going to finish this story with Cody. They're going to finish this story with Cody. And they're going hard on these draft being being different, these different divisions. Cody should not be able to get a shot at Roman Reigns, who's on SmackDown, if he's on Raw. How are they to tell the story now? And I think if they're gonna try to give him the Money in the Bank briefcase, also hate that. That's not the way that you're gonna tell this Cody story. He doesn't need any of those outliers anymore, because the Royal Rumble was the one. And if you're trying to tell this story now, I'm not looking forward to it, honestly.
Now I feel like we should take a little draft break, so we're going to swap up the lineup a little bit, but we will get to AEW's rumored brand split as Collision heads our way. And just to clarify, yes, MJF is on week-to-week programming, but his matches are spread out very, very far apart. It seems all but confirmed, which is actually a great tie-in, because last time we were on this roundtable, it was right after CM Punk put out that long Instagram post that he, posted and deleted, sort of calling out Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley. And I'm sitting here, and I'll have my wonderful panel tell me, Shaq, you don't know what it's like to have that level of fame. I am telling you, because I know people who are just as impulsive as CM Punk seems to be from time to time. I repeat and I maintain, despite not knowing what it means to be a celebrity, it is not that hard to delete and erase your posts before you press submit. There's a lot of time to think about it, to write it, to read over it. Use it as therapy, my guy, but there's so many opportunities to not post stuff. So, coming out of last month's roundtable, I was sorely convinced that, this is the end of the road for CM Punk and AEW, but here we are, very firmly entrenched in the belief that he will be returning in the summer in conjunction with the launch of AEW Collision, which, for all the people who are saying that AEW is going downhill, there's just more and more programming coming in month after month, it seems. CM Punk doesn't do anything without intent. I guess that may be true for those Instagram posts that I keep bemoaning. He shows up backstage on WWE Raw, shows up backstage on Impact. We're firmly under the suspicion that he's coming back to AEW. Reg, what is CM Punk doing right now?
He's playing a beautiful game, you guys. And those two backstage things were in the same week. You think this guy's just outside visiting friends? Probably not. He made it a point, I think, to show AEW that, look, I could play ball. I'm over here with these people I've been thinking bad about a lot, but I'm back here reportedly talking to The Miz, talking to Triple H. I'm playing ball. I'm over here at Impact playing Uno, having a great time, just being a team player. There's no way that I'm this bad guy that you guys keep trying to paint me as. I'm ready to come back to work. I'm backstage at a wrestling show. I'm ready to be backstage at the wrestling show that I'm contracted for. I think this is a perfect ploy for CM Punk. He's playing a beautiful game, and it's all very hilarious on top of anything.
Kenny?
It's interesting because none of us really know the full story of what happened. People will get their story out there. I think with Punk, the challenge must be that the other side have kind of thrown digs at him for months and months and months. Jericho said the stuff on Twitter. The Bucks, they're like, we don't want to talk about it, but then they do the thing in the match where they do the pretend go to sleep and all that. So he did stay silent for a long time, and I think you just get to a point where you're
that match so much. Kenny starts biting people, just. But
then you do kind of lose your argument at that point.
Yeah.
If your whole argument is if you guys are gonna, it's the whole thing is it was a serious fight and we were assaulted or whatever had happened. That if you then start doing that, then it's I don't know what's going on, and I feel it's just this Punk thing has consumed programming for so long. And now he's going to come back. He goes to Raw. Was he there to make amends? Was he there to play a game? Who knows? He was playing Uno and Impact. I mean, he's going to turn up in New Japan soon, I'm sure. He's everywhere. But my question is, it doesn't seem like there has been reconciliation between the Elite and Punk. And coming back, it just feels like we are brewing for another collision, pardon.
Hey.
And to be honest, I'm here for it. I'm really here for it. I love the drama. I see people on Twitter losing their minds. I'm like, Shawn Michaels is one of your favorite wrestlers.
Yes.
Like
Alex.
Coming for my throat.
I mean, it's fine to not like someone, but I mean, come on. Like the guy every week was in a fight. It was constant. So yeah, I just feel like we don't have a story, and I feel like one side has been very vocal about it. The other side stayed quiet most of the time, and now I think the other side's just probably had enough. But I wouldn't want to be Tony Khan right now, having to think, how can I get them all in a room and decide? Because to me, the last thing I'll say, sorry, I'm not hogging the time, but are the elite still EVPs? Do we know this?
The Shawn Michaels of Fightful Roundtable, Kenny McIntosh.
Like, if they're still EVPs, the elite, then for the business, you would think they would go, okay, Punk's going to get the second show. It's going to grow the company for the better of the business. We're going to shake hands, even though we don't like each other, and just kind of post. If they're just talent, then can Tony Khan just say, I'm the boss, do what I'm telling you? Like, there's got to be one or the other in that scenario. And I just don't know which one it is.
Before we move to you, Alex, I this morning as I was getting ready on my YouTube Shorts, I came across a compilation of Shawn Michaels throwing a tantrum in his early stardom, and man, what I would have paid to see Big Van Vader, after just eating 2 stiff kicks to the head for no apparent reason, just get up and tear that man in two. Yeah, the level of pettiness of prime Shawn Michaels is just something else. I'm glad he's found his peace. Alex,
for personally telling me that.
To you.
Listen, if there's anyone that would agree that Shawn Michaels definitely should be put in his place at that point of time, it's me. Listen, he was a shithead. I think we could all agree on that. Also, you should have sent me that video. Why didn't you? He is a sexy boy.
Honestly, I didn't know. I didn't know. I'll send it to you right now.
I accept all Shawn Michaels content. But going back to CM Punk, you know who he reminds me of? CM Punk reminds me of that kid that graduated from high school and comes back to high school every once in a while just to feel something. That's what he reminds me of when he goes. He's going to WWE.
Now,
he's going to Impact. That's who he reminds me of. Just to feel something, feel important. But he is, right? Like CM Punk is important. He's influenced so many wrestlers we see and love today. I definitely think he knows what he's doing. And his name is in everybody's mouth, and his name is in everybody's headline. So like, he's doing something. Bad publicity is still good publicity at the end of the day. I think in terms of making up with the Bucks, I am also happy I'm not Tony Khan in that department. But it's one of those things that I've always said, that I think that Punk is always going to have a place in wrestling, always going to have somewhat of a home in wrestling, but it's to the degree of how he treats that property in a way. And so I feel with everything that happened with AEW, with the Bucks, with Kenny, whether they resolved it or not behind the scenes is something that we don't know, or they're playing up to everything else. One side is vocal, one side is not. At the end of the day, we're still talking about him. We're still the brawl is still relevant almost a year later, and now we're still on Punk watch alert of where he's going to show up. I'm surprised he didn't show up at the Met Gala last night, to be honest. But it's an interesting approach to what he's taking compared to what was it, 8 years ago when he first left the WWE, and he was quiet for a very long time, and even then fans were chanting his names. People were still chanting his names 2 years after that, even when he was in the UFC. And he comes out with his podcast just telling his story, and even then he knew what he was saying. Like, he knows what he's doing at the end of the day. He's posting all of these terrific Instagram. First of all, I'm pretty sure the guys doesn't know that close friends exist on Instagram, because that's easily a post that you could just throw on your close friends, and I don't know, AJ Lee will read it or something, and Larry as well. But at the end of the day, I just think that there's always going to be a Punk, and he's always going to stir up some kind of momentum. I wouldn't necessarily say it's controversy. I mean, the brawl is controversial, but he's always going to be a part of wrestling, just like the kid who graduated from high school.
I stopped once I realized no one recognized me anymore. So
Dude, it's okay.
You just like unearthed a character trait that I didn't even know was faulty, and so now I've got. Honestly, thank you. I was feeling really good this week, Alex, and I have something to talk to my therapist about. So I'm always churning out content for me. Thank you.
I mean, as if your shirt wasn't an obvious sign of your week.
Shut up. Yes. Thank you very much.
It's not a character fault to, or maybe it is to like freshmen and sophomores. Like, why is this guy back? What is he doing?
I'll take the L this week. Okay, guys. Now, what were we even talking about? Oh yeah, CM Punk. I'm sure there's a multitude of reasons and a lot that he could get done in his time visiting these promotions. I'm willing to just chalk it up to let's just drum up some interest and get some news going and get my name back in the cycle ahead of a return. I don't know that it's all that deep, it may be, but I feel like at this point I'm pretty confident we know where CM Punk will be come the summer. And on that note, it appears that in connection with the launch of Collision, some of the reports suggest that this may be in part an opportunity to continue giving CM Punk some space from some of the talent that he's been at odds with. We've seen reports that him and Chris Jericho talked. Who knows where he stands with the Elite right now. So, in the aftermath of the WWE Draft, we're now looking at a potential brand split for AEW. So I'm curious, Kenny, when it comes to AEW's approach to a brand split, do you have a different perspective than how WWE is implementing it? Do you just hate all brand splits like you hate all gingers?
Listen, I could no. I've a lot of gingers, dated a lot of gingers. I'm not going to go into what else has happened, but like I'm a big fan of gingers, but not in effect. Anyway, I should mention before I say anything. By the way, I'm moving house. That's why there's a mattress behind me.
Not for all the gingers that have been visiting.
Homeless person. Yeah. The ginger people are welcome here anyway. But no, one of the things that I think AEW almost has had the opposite problem to WWE. They have so many people. They've signed so many people that like a brand split for them is probably needed. Like it's needed. And I guess my hope with the brand split is that Tony can get some help, not because he's not able to book things, but it's going to be a big job to do two rosters and to do two brands and all that. So I hope that he's maybe able to get someone in to help him with that. But I think they're smart. Make the Wednesday show the kind of indie wrestling show with the Elite and that kind of stuff, and make the Saturday show the CM Punk and FTR old school realistic promos, and make there be a reason that people have to watch both rather than pick one.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits is that they've gotten better in recent weeks, but it just feels like the long-term AEW at times feels so scatterbrained after those first four champions that Tony Khan mapped out were crowned. It's just, Wardlow's hot and suddenly he's not on TV. Ricky Starks is hot and suddenly he's not on TV. I hope that this brand split with such a large roster gives them sort of forces them to bottleneck and be more consistent in who they push. And I feel optimistic that they can do that, because you mentioned earlier how WWE doesn't have enough sort of main event stars to have a brand split right now. AEW almost has the opposite problem. Like there are clearly the main eventers, but there's such an unproven mid-card, upper mid-card section that you can really give room for it feels like everyone is chomping at the bit to do more, and they haven't been bogged down by bad booking long enough to feel like it's hopeless. Like, we're not seeing Dolph Ziggler as a main event star, but I feel confident that just about anyone on the AEW roster could get there with a consistent push over a few months. Alex?
What was the question?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just rambling. Brand split, AEW, good, bad? How do you want to see it implemented?
Right. I think it's good. I think I agree with the both of you. There's a lot of good talent in AEW where, again, I don't think story-wise, booking-wise, or anything wins sometimes. I don't think it's damaging some people, but I just want to see more of a lot of talent that usually just doesn't get a shine, or sometimes feels like a filler to certain main stars, like Butcher and the Blade, for instance. I would love to see more of them on a regular basis. You know, people like Lee Moriarty, Emi Sakura, Deontay, like, they're still signed on there. I just want to see more of them and not feel like they are a level up to somebody else's storyline, if that makes sense. And I think with a split, you can definitely do it with the titles, you know, because you could have trios on one show, tag on another show, TBS title, women's title, and so forth. But I think the question is, would you want to introduce another main title, world title? And is that going to, okay, yeah, no, never mind. Scratch that. So never mind.
Yes.
Reg, let's move on to you. Reg, what do you
Twitter
think?
again.
Yes, we're gonna go back and bleep that out.
I'm
but like, I don't think so. It's just a question of like, do you guys want it? No? Okay, never mind. Scratch that.
Oh, no one's free this week. Everyone catching strays.
Case, I didn't want to see it. It was just a question I was asking to the general roundtable, but but again, I do think that they're a split between the roster with AEW is good, but I'm questioning what is going to happen with Ring of Honor, because Ring of Honor, I like what they're doing so far with Ring of Honor, and that feels like that could be what they're trying to accomplish with Collision. But it just sometimes, I guess it just feels like, do they have enough space to implement another show on top of the two shows that they have, which is Rampage and Dynamite, and then Ring of Honor? And I also, Kenny, I do think that maybe, it's not to say that Tony Khan does a bad job or anything, but I do think that somebody else should take charge in Collision, because it would just, you know, bring more creativity to AEW. And again, no none of that. I'm just making sure that whoever clips this for Wrestling Twitter knows that I'm not suggesting that. Okay,
they're not gonna hear this part.
Yeah,
they're not gonna hear this part.
Exist.
Reg,
you're out of here. They're getting you out of here, Alex. That's where
I mean, they've done it so far. All right, so
chicken tenders. Yeah, I think the best. I think this brand split is, people have been saying, they've been looking at it in a bad way, like, oh, they're giving CM Punk on show. I can't. Tony Khan needs to get a hold of the inmates. Blah blah blah. Forget about all that. This is a great for all those pro wrestlers that are back there without the opportunity to show themselves, without the opportunity to constantly be featured on Dynamite. Rampage is kind of irrelevant at this point. It needs to be another big show where these people that are in the back, say like a Miro, say like the trios champions, House of Black, say like, you know what I mean? Like there's an opportunity for a bunch of wrestlers who haven't had the time to shine. Diamante, all the people that are kind of sitting in Darkland or sitting off to the sides waiting for their opportunity. This is going to be a chance for them to be on a big show. My question comes to, you're going to have CM Punk on this show. What happened if this show start getting better ratings than Dynamite? Because CM Punk has been proven to be a draw. And I think if you're putting on a really dope show on Saturdays, it's potential that you could put on some good ratings that might be Dynamite. And that runs into the problem of them saying, Well, we need CM Punk on Wednesdays now, so we can't have this all the way over here. What problems are they going to run to if this show starts to be super successful?
I was gonna off what you both just said. Like, do you think there's a in the US, if you say you watch Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Rampage, that's like your 4 shows that you watch, and then Ring of Honor is a fifth. Like, are people gonna think, well, I've only got time to watch 2 shows a week, so maybe I'll watch the Saturday night AEW show, and maybe I'll watch SmackDown. Like, are people gonna have to choose? Because also, who's gonna watch Rampage now? Like, if it's like, because you've only got so much time. Like, if you have any form of life, you're going to want to at least do something at some point in the week. So, like, and the ROH thing, it's like, I mean, to me, this is kind of ROH is going to be put out to pasture as well, because it's a lot of content for people to watch. And like, do you remember that Fraser Crane line? If less is more, imagine how much more can be. Yeah. And it's like, that's what we're getting now. And it's like, I mean, if you know, we all kind of cover wrestling for our job and stuff. If we were just like people who had loads of different interests, how many hours of wrestling do we have a week in us if we have other things going on? And it can't be that many.
It's also like, what couldn't they just utilize Ring of Honor? There's so much rich history within that company, and there's so many good talent that not only has been influenced by that company within its past, but also individuals that have made history in that company. If you want to move CM Punk to a separate brand for whatever the reason is, wouldn't it make sense for him to essentially come back home to Ring of Honor? Because that in itself would be, I mean, it's already a bunch of ratings, right? Wherever, like, whether it's Dynamite, Rampage, or Collision, but wouldn't that make sense with the inclusion of Ring of Honor to elevate that a little bit more and have him be the face of it, so to say?
And do we think that they've tried that and Warner's been like, we don't want ROH, we want AEW?
Yeah.
So that's what we want. We're not.
That's what I think.
That's sort of my hunch too.
Maybe. Maybe. Because you would think that, Alex, that would be what they would do. They would go, Punk was synonymous with ROH. We're doing a new 2-hour show. This fits. Like, it seems like that would be the answer. So it almost seems like there must be a stumbling block.
You know, I think what I like about the introduction of Collision is that it sort of serves as a desperately needed fix for a number of problems that AEW has run into recently, but it's imperative that they execute here. One, Rampage, I think, has been getting a little more consistent week to week. We're actually seeing storylines continue from episode versus episode, as opposed to it being sort of like a main event-esque show. The problem is, and I think this sort of ties into how maybe executives at Warner at Warner Discovery maybe feel about Ring of Honor, is like, once you've established what this product is and what its ceiling is, it's hard to get people reinvested. So if we've brushed off Rampage as an afterthought or a B show, maybe it's just easier to launch a new A show. So I think that's problem number one that hopefully this solves for. Problem number two, they signed way too many people. And it's frustrating because Tony went on that hiring spree, and now when you have people like Roderick Strong show up or Jay White that, like, you're like, you know what, this is actually a really great signing, I feel like I, as a consumer, am relapsing because I'm like, Steadfast, this is too much, you need to stop. But then they bring people in periodically where I'm like, oh, this is great. But I told you I wasn't going to support this anymore. Like, you guys have way too many. Wouldn't this have been so much better if you stopped hiring everyone? I've got real, this is bringing back memories of like my friendships with people. Like, I keep telling myself I'm out, and then you keep drawing me back in with one good experience. So, fortunately,
didn't Dave Meltzer say once you can only push like 7 people at a time?
Yeah.
So if you've got like 60 people, and then like, you know, as an example, I need to get this rant out. It's 30 seconds. It won't take long.
Please.
Action Andretti, right? He beats Chris. Where the can I swear? No, swear? I'll not swear. Where is he? Is my point. You know what I was going to say. Like,
swear away.
Where the fuck is he? Because it's so dumb that he beats Chris Jericho. And it's like there's so many people, like you were mentioning earlier, that like Malachi Black, he came in and he beat Cody, and then all of a sudden it's like, where's Malachi? Or, I mean, Miro was a game, which really was just like, what? Because he's supposed to be a killer. It just feels like, hopefully, like these two separate shows will be the answers to the problem. But there needs to be, like with Jay White, I'll give you an example. Right? I don't really watch New Japan, so this is my first proper introduction to Jay White on a regular basis. And so far, I don't see anything because I've not been presented anything, right? Like, because I get told Jay White's so great, Jay White's so great. And I'm like, but you're not showing me anything. You're not showing me what this guy's history is, or like, because he's just doing a Bullet Club thing, which almost could seem like a parody because they're not giving you any context. And then Excalibur's got to get in like 4,000 words per minute to get all the stuff he's got to. Have you seen when he has to do the lineup?
Busta Rhymes, Eminem wrapped into one. It's amazing what that guy can pull off. And the best part is, I think last week they didn't even shoot to commercial after. They shot to Bryan Danielson. It was like all for naught.
Just Excalibur with oxygen in the corner trying to like get back to get his breath back. But yeah, I hope that my fear in the back of my mind is that the two shows, he then hires too many people, and then the two shows have the same problem. I just hope that, like, I'll give an example. Last year at Forbidden Door, when they brought Okada out on Dynamite, and I was so excited to see how they would present Okada, and he just walked out like he was at a college class. And I was like, why do you show something of like how big a star he is in Japan? Like, show like parades these thousands of people, like big up the god that he is in wrestling. And it's like, I just don't feel like they do that. I feel like a lot of times they assume that everybody just knows who everybody is. And I think that's maybe a mistake. That they should teach people like me who maybe don't watch everything as to why I should care about this person who's just come in and keep them on TV and being pushed.
Okay,
sorry for my rant.
No, that's okay. Rant away, but we're going to give you a little bit of little bit of a break, much like Excalibur, to catch your breath. We're going to shoot very, very quickly to Sean Ross Sapp with an important announcement for all you nasty nasties who need to hide what you're doing on the internet. And I don't think it played. That's terrific. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Sorry, Sean. You're not getting your ad read today, buddy. I deleted the file. Yes, I did. So, NordVPN, sign up. Code Fightful, I imagine. Maybe you need to watch some. Maybe you're getting bored of what's on Netflix, Disney Plus, Crave, whatever streaming service you use. Look, I'm in Canada. I can't even get Showtime Boxing, even though I work for them, but I can with NordVPN. Use code Fightful, you get some sort of discount, I imagine. Sorry, Sean.
Who can argue with that? Some sort of
That's
discount.
it. I'm
Reg, you don't know it? You work here.
Yeah. No,
once a month.
No.
Reg, help me out, man. All right.
Put me into this too, Alex.
Reg, you have like 30 shows on this channel. What, you don't know?
You wanted everybody down under the bus tonight. Okay, all right. I see what's going on.
No, I don't. I just think you need to be on top of your job. That's all.
I do use Nord for what it's worth, so you can trust me on this one.
Boom.
Okay. Well, guys, that was a disaster, but let's leave on this. You know what hasn't been a disaster? For as much as, naysayers and doomsdayers want to talk about the fall of AEW, I'm seeing more content than ever. I know it's been an AEW heavy show, but sort of to tie in everything we've been talking about, all in, what is it, like 35,000 pre-sale tickets sold, all access, a third show coming up on Saturday. While the ratings have been sort of, steady to occasionally dipping, what does it say about pro wrestling on mainstream networks in 2023 that AEW, being consistent but not over delivering week to week, what does it say about sort of the reliability and what the future is looking like for pro wrestling as far as sort of mainstream media is concerned? I'll just kind of open the floor on this one. Also, WWE just sold to Endeavor. We're looking at like a $21 billion valuation between UFC and WWE. Ratings are not what they were in the Attitude Era, but there's more money being pumped into it than ever. Why is that?
Now, I was thinking about that actually with how many sold out shows WWE has produced, and like every week on TV, even not on TV. This Paris show was sold out. They're selling out shows consistently. This is like I'm watching wrestling for what feels like 30 years now. I haven't seen them this hot in a long time. And AEW on the same thing. Like you said, they're getting all these shows. Wrestling is on for 7 days a week. Every single day, there's new wrestling program on. When there's PLEs or pay-per-views, Sundays involved, like every day you could get wrestling. And that is just a crazy jump from being someone that came watching in the 90s, watching in the early 2000s, when you had to be in front of your TV on Mondays, sometimes Tuesdays, Friday nights, Thursday nights, or whenever Raw and SmackDown or Thunder or whatever was presented. Now it's like any day of the week you can watch wrestling. And I think it's great for everybody. I love that WWE is selling out every show. They're blowing out all their numbers they've ever had with these PLEs. Amazing for the wrestling business, and it's amazing for everybody, honestly.
I've always said that professional wrestling is the black sheep of entertainment because it is so large, right? Wembley just sold out. I mean, you had SoFi in WrestleMania, you had like 100,000 people, and everyone knows about wrestling. It just feels like it's behind a transparent curtain in a way. But I think with the help of mainstream media, even mainstream names like Bad Bunny, like, you know, Rick Ross that's coming into AEW, and I think that's a good thing for fans because it's wrestling is better than anything that you'll ever watch ever in your existence, right? And there's always something for somebody in wrestling, no matter how you identify, no matter what your background is, there's always something for you. And going back to what Reg was saying, like, I've been watching wrestling since the day I was born, thanks to my two older brothers putting me in pile drivers all the time. But there was a time where accessing wrestling beyond WWE, ECW, and WCW was unheard of. And now we have so many streaming sites that give us indie wrestling from IWTV. You have streaming sites that give us Japanese wrestling from Stardom, TJPW, Wrestling Universe, and beyond. I think wrestling being in the mainstream spotlight is always going to be good, not only for business, but also for fans as well. And I sort of think in a way, wrestling every single night. Actually, it is every single night, 7 days a week on,
Reg just broke it down for us.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's great. It's always great. And so I just think in terms of a fan perspective, I know that a lot of fans that may want to gatekeep wrestling or whatever it is, or, like, again, I feel like everyone, not only in this chat, everyone that's watching, but on this panel, we've all been made fun of that we were wrestling fans, right?
Definitely.
Oh, that stuff is fake and this and that, blah, blah, blah. But now maybe with this mainstream exposure, maybe there's a chance that we aren't the freaks. We aren't the weirdos,
And I can't stand behind that. You're definitely still freaks and weirdos.
I'm still the one who went back to my high school repeatedly after graduating.
Yeah, some of us are queerdos,
There you go.
It's funny. When I'm younger, right? So in the UK, obviously Dave Meltzer is the king of the newsletter and all that. In the UK, there used to be a magazine called Power Slam. A guy called Finlay Martin used to run it, and I podcast with him now. And he stopped the magazine in 2014, and one of the reasons he did was because there was nothing else to talk about apart from WWE. TNA was not a seller. If he ever put a TNA star on the cover, the magazines never sold well, even though they had all the big names. So I think that with AEW, whether you like the stuff they do or you don't, and you can happily critique some of the stuff and not, I think the fact that they are around is huge. It is so good for wrestling that they're around. The fact that they've done this Wembley show is going to be good for everybody. Like Reg was talking about WWE selling out those shows, and who's on the top of the bill? Cody Rhodes, who had been in AEW. And there will be people who go to AEW soon from WWE that Tony can't just not on TV after 3 weeks. He has to keep them on and heavily push them. And we're going to start getting people going back and forth. That's creating more fan interest. So I think we're in a really good spot, and there's not really a sign of it going away. And these extra shows, while it makes my social life non-existent, I am very happy that it just looks like things are thriving for both companies, and I don't need to worry about there being a monopoly anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And on that note, guys, that is all the time we have today. What a wonderfully optimistic way to conclude this. Thank you very much, Kenny. I want to give each of you the floor very quickly. So, Kenny, let's start with you. Plug away. Where can people find all the great work that you do?
Obviously, if you're ginger, you do get in touch immediately. You're to the top of the queue. But otherwise, I'll still speak to you potentially. We have a magazine called Inside the Ropes Magazine. You can go to insidetheropesmagazine.com. You can buy it digitally. It's in some Barnes & Noble stores in the US. We have a website, itrwrestling.com. I don't think anyone who is watching this is in Scotland, but if you are, we're doing a live Q&A show with Gangrel in July. Come along. It'll be fun. I fully intend to get him to drink a cup of blood and spit it somewhere. So yeah, come join us. For that. We've got a massive YouTube channel, Inside the Ropes. We've got like 250,000 subscribers. We put clips up our live shows all the time and Zoom interviews. So yeah, if you can check any of that out, I would appreciate it.
Hey, no kink shaming here, Kenny. You spit that blood with famed porn director.
Wherever you need to. Wherever you need to spit it.
The gingers will love it.
Everyone's going to have red hair by the end of that episode. Alex, you're up.
Hi, hello. If you would like to know more about Joshi Wrestling, you can follow Church of Joshi on Instagram and Twitter. We are going live, or we do go live every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/Church of Joshi. But also, if you want more of me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Queen of the Ring. You can find me there with my schedule, or my streaming schedule. And of course, Queen of the Ring everywhere on Instagram. And also my YouTube channel /Queen of the Ring Wrestling. So there's a lot of fun stuff happening there. And I'm pretty sure that's all the things I should be plugging.
Reg.
Righteous Reg every Saturday. You can catch me on the Graphic Podcast, which still exists because Will Washington is gone. Philip Lindsay and I are still here outside doing our very excited about us. Catch us this Saturday. Also catch us this Thursday, Ask Grapsody on Fightful Select. We're on Fightful. Shout out to Fightful every Thursday. I'm also on the ROH Post with Kate, and every Wednesday I'm on Indeed with Mike, talking independent wrestling, talking Ring of Honor, talking AEW, talking WWE, talking everything you would ever want to know. I do write articles for Pro Wrestling Illustrated sometimes, talking about wrestling. So Kenny, if you need somebody, I'm also here too. I like to put my plugs for everybody. Shout out to everybody. Follow me on the internet at Righteous Reg. My wrestling seal, some people would say.
All right. Thank you all for tolerating me on my monthly excursion over at Fightful. Day to day, you can catch my written work over at cbs.com, MMA, WWE. That's where you're going to find all that. Shaq Wrestling on YouTube. That's Shaq with a K. New interview with Amos dropped last week. And one person who DM'd me on Twitter would describe it as terrible and embarrassing, and that I should be more respectful and ask better questions. So check out that interview with Amos. Though I really like the feature we wrote on him. So, I think there must have... Maybe that's why I'm wearing this shirt today, guys. Maybe that's what all this is about.
That definitely explains the shirt.
Busy day in MMA. If you enjoy that kind of stuff, Shaq MMA on YouTube dropped interviews this week with Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad, who are in the co-main event of UFC 288, plus Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, the GOAT, fighting on Friday against Adriano Moraes. Got that interview as well. Go check all that out. Thanks as always to Sean Ross Sapp and the team at Fightful for giving me a platform to do what I love. If you haven't already, maybe you jumped over with some of these lovely people. Please hit subscribe, tune in. Maybe you'll even see that mystical NordVPN ad that we didn't get to. For Kenny, for Alex, for Reg, I'm Shakiel Mahjouri. We'll see you next month right here at Fightful. Enjoy all the craziness.